Have you ever wondered what makes a person truly powerful? Is it the way they speak, their words sharp and commanding? Is it the way they walk into a room, confident, unshaken, demanding attention? Or is it something deeper, something invisible yet unmistakably felt? Picture this. You're standing face to face with a predator in the wild. It doesn't growl, it doesn't charge, it just stands there, still, silent, calculating. And somehow, that silence is more terrifying than any roar could ever be. That's real power, the kind that doesn't announce itself, but is felt in every heartbeat of those around it. Now imagine a chess grandmaster. He sits motionless, calm as marble, while his opponent sweats bullets, mind racing, desperate to predict his next move. But he gives away nothing. No flinch, no twitch, no hint. That too is power, the kind of dominance born not from noise, but from stillness. Real power isn't loud. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. It exists quietly in those who have mastered themselves, in men and women who no longer react to chaos because they own their inner world. The Stoics understood this truth better than anyone. They knew that true strength isn't in aggression or dominance. It's in control. Control over one's mind, one's emotions, one's energy. Because when you can't control what happens around you, you must control what happens within you. In this video, we're going to explore seven silent strategies from Stoic philosophy, ancient principles that will make your enemies think twice before crossing you. These aren't tricks or manipulation. They are disciplines, ways of being that command respect without a single word. Master these and you won't have to raise your voice to be heard. Your very presence will speak for you. So let's begin. 1. Master your emotions. The greatest power you can ever wield is not over others, it's over yourself. When your enemies try to provoke you, when they mock, insult, or attempt to rattle your calm, your first instinct will be to react, to defend yourself, to strike back, to prove you're not weak. But here's the harsh truth. The moment you react emotionally, you lose control. You hand them the power they could never take from you, unless you gave it away. Nothing unsettles an enemy more than someone who cannot be provoked. When they push your buttons and are met with calm indifference, it breaks their rhythm. They don't know how to respond to stillness. Your composure becomes a mirror, reflecting their insecurity back at them. And your silence, it becomes your sharpest weapon. The Stoics lived by this. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Strength doesn't come from shouting. It doesn't come from revenge. It comes from stillness in the storm, from the ability to rise above provocation, to remain centered when the world spins around you. Let me tell you a story. A man I once knew, let's call him Victor, worked with someone who constantly tried to undermine him. This person would throw sarcastic comments, challenge him in front of others, and always try to trigger a reaction. At first, Victor played right into it, arguing, defending himself, letting his frustration show. And every time he did, his enemy won. But one day, Victor understood. Every emotional reaction was fuel for his opponent's fire, so he made a change. The next time an insult came his way, he stayed still. He didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He didn't even acknowledge it. He simply looked back, calm, quiet, unmoved. And suddenly, the power shifted. The one who once sought control now looked uncertain. His taunts lost weight. His arrogance began to fade. Because nothing is more disarming than a man who refuses to be manipulated. That is Stoic strength, silent, disciplined, unshakable. And once you master it, the world begins to move around you, not the other way around. Victor's silence became his strength. And over time, something remarkable happened. His enemies stopped trying. The provocations faded, the tension dissolved, because they finally realized one thing. They couldn't control what refused to be controlled. That's the secret. When you no longer react, you take back every ounce of power they once had over you. So how do you master your emotions the way Victor did? It begins with awareness. First, recognize your triggers. Know what sets you off, what words or situations tend to pull you into reaction. Awareness is your first line of defense. You can't control what you don't see coming. Second, practice self-discipline. When emotion rises, don't act. Pause. Take a single breath. That small space between stimulus and response is where your strength lives. And finally, understand that emotional control is not weakness, It's dominance over self. At the end of the day, true power doesn't come from overpowering others. It comes from mastering yourself. When you stay calm, you become untouchable. And in a world that thrives on chaos, your composure becomes your greatest advantage. The quiet shield that makes you unstoppable. 2. Maintain an unshakable presence. True confidence never needs to shout. It doesn't beg to be seen, it doesn't crave applause, and it doesn't rely on approval. Instead, it exists as a quiet force, steady, grounded, undeniable, the kind of presence that commands respect the instant it enters a room. An unshakable presence isn't built on arrogance, it's built on self-assurance. When you truly know who you are and what you stand for, you no longer need to prove it. Your posture, your tone, your movements, they all tell the story for you. You radiate calm certainty. You project strength without aggression. Here's the truth. Confidence without arrogance is intimidating. When you move with purpose, when you occupy your space unapologetically, people notice, not because you demand attention, but because you don't need to ask for it. And slowly their doubts began to shape her own. The noise grew louder. The outside voices started drowning out the inner one. And the more she listened to others, the more uncertain she became of herself. Then Naomi decided to change everything. She stopped announcing her plans. No more updates. No more "I'm about to." Instead of talking about what she was going to do, she simply did it. She worked quietly, day after day, without asking for permission, validation, or applause. She focused on her craft, she shut out the noise, and she moved in silence. When her success finally came, there was nothing left for anyone to say. Her results were undeniable. Her work spoke louder than any explanation ever could, and all those who doubted her were left in awe. So how can you make power moves in silence? First, keep your plans to yourself. Not everyone deserves access to your dreams. Some people can't see beyond their own limitations, and they'll project those limits onto you. Protect your vision from their fear. Let your success surprise them instead. Second, stay focused. Talking about your goals gives a false sense of progress. Execution is what matters. The world rewards action, not intention. So put your head down and do the work. And finally, let your results be your proof. You don't need to justify your progress or explain your strategy. People will see your discipline, they will feel your consistency, and they will respect what you've built, even if they never saw it coming. At the end of the day, true power isn't in what you say, it's in what you do. Keep your ambitions private. Work relentlessly, and let your success speak for itself. Move in silence, and let your results make the loudest noise of all. 7. Be unapologetically yourself. There is nothing more powerful than a person who refuses to apologize for who they are. In a world obsessed with approval, where people constantly adjust their personalities to fit in, where authenticity is rare and where truth is often traded for acceptance, the one who stands firm in their identity becomes unstoppable. In a world obsessed with approval, where so many people adjust themselves just to be liked, standing firm in who you truly are becomes an act of quiet rebellion. And rebellion, when rooted in authenticity, commands both fear and respect. Most people are desperate to belong. They hide their opinions, they downplay their gifts, they sand away the edges that make them unique just to avoid standing out. But here's the truth. The moment you stop trying to fit in, you become untouchable. When you release the need for validation, the balance of power shifts. You no longer chase anyone's approval, which makes you immune to their judgment. And nothing unsettles people more than someone who simply doesn't need to be approved of. That's why the Stoics taught that real freedom begins when you live in accordance with your true nature. Epictetus said that peace doesn't come from being accepted, it comes from becoming independent of the opinions of others. When you stop chasing acceptance, you gain something far greater, self-respect. And when you respect yourself, the world follows. Let me tell you a story. There was a man I once knew. Let's call him Elias. For years, Elias twisted himself to fit into every social circle he entered. He laughed at jokes he didn't find funny. He hid his strength so he wouldn't make others uncomfortable. He dimmed his light just to make everyone else feel a little brighter. But over time, that constant pretending drained him. He began to feel hollow, disconnected, lost. He had spent so long wearing masks that he forgot what his real face even looked like. One day, Elias made a decision. He stopped pretending. He spoke his mind, calmly, clearly, unapologetically. He stood firm in what he believed, even when others disagreed. And something incredible happened. People began to respect him. They admired his honesty, his composure, his refusal to bend for approval. The same authenticity that once made him afraid to stand out now made him magnetic. Those who truly valued him stayed close. Those who couldn't handle his truth quietly faded away. Either way, Elias won. So how do you become unapologetically yourself? First, stop seeking validation. You don't need permission to be who you are. The moment you stop chasing acceptance, you discover what real power feels like. Second, embrace your uniqueness. The very traits that make you different are your greatest strengths. Don't hide them. Highlight them. Authenticity isn't arrogance, it's courage. And finally, live by your own standards. Stop following rules designed to keep you small. Set your own path. Define success in your own language. Let your life reflect the truth of who you really are. At the end of the day, those who live authentically cannot be controlled. The world fears what it cannot manipulate. So be unapologetically yourself. Stand tall in your identity. And watch as people either respect you or disappear. Either way, you win. Because true power doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being real. When you stop shrinking to fit inside other people's expectations, you become untouchable. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you've learned to stand fully in your own strength. Own who you are, and the world will have no choice but to respect you. If this message resonated with you, drop a comment below that says "Power in Silence." And don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights on mastering yourself and commanding respect effortlessly. Remember, the strongest person is the one who needs no validation. Stay disciplined, stay unshaken, and I'll see you in the next video. This doesn't mean deceit. It doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. It means choosing, carefully and deliberately, what you reveal and to whom. When you keep certain things to yourself, your struggles, your next moves, your private doubts, you become unpredictable, and the unpredictable cannot be controlled. That's where true Stoic wisdom reveals its edge. Sun Tzu once said, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." Because the master strategist understands that power doesn't always come from brute strength, it comes from controlling perception. If you are too open, too transparent, too eager to share every detail of your thoughts and emotions, people will know exactly how to counter you. They will read you like a book. But if you hold back, if you reveal only what is necessary, you become an enigma. Impossible to predict, impossible to manipulate. Let me share a story. There was a man I once knew. Let's call him Damon. Damon was the kind of person everyone thought they knew. He shared everything. His struggles, his frustrations, his big ambitions. He believed that openness built trust, that being transparent made him relatable. But over time, he began to notice something unsettling. The very things he shared were being used against him. If he mentioned that he was tired, his boss piled on more work. If he confided in a coworker about a personal challenge, rumors spread before the day was over. If he talked about his goals, people began quietly competing to beat him there first. His honesty had become a weapon in other people's hands. So Damon made a change. He stopped oversharing. He spoke less about his struggles. He kept his ambitions close to his chest, revealing them only when absolutely necessary. And he became more selective, much more selective, about whom he trusted. Then something remarkable happened. The same people who once took advantage of his openness now treated him differently. They started to respect him more, because mystery breeds respect. When people can't predict your every move, they stop trying to control you. Damon had regained his power, not by fighting, not by explaining, but by becoming unreadable. His silence was no longer emptiness, it was authority. So how can you maintain this same control? First, be mindful of what you share. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Your fears, your plans, your insecurities, these are sacred. Protect them. Second, embrace mystery. The less predictable you are, the harder it becomes for others to manipulate or anticipate you. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them question what you'll do next. Curiosity is a form of respect. And finally, use your strength strategically. Reveal power when necessary. Show vulnerability when it serves your purpose. Control perception, and you control the entire game. At the end of the day, the less others know about you, the more power you hold. Protect your inner world. Keep your plans private, your struggles guarded, and your emotions under quiet discipline. Make it difficult for others to define you, and you become impossible to manipulate. If you've made it this far, type "Stay Unpredictable" in the comments and hit like to show your support. Your presence fuels this channel, and together we'll keep growing stronger, wiser, and calmer with every lesson. 6. Make power moves in silence. The loudest voices are rarely the most powerful. Those who constantly broadcast their plans, their ambitions, and their next big move give away their greatest advantage, the element of surprise. There is something irresistibly powerful about moving in silence, working in the shadows, building your empire quietly while the world remains unaware of your progress. In today's world, everyone wants to announce everything: dreams, strategies, next steps, big news. But restraint is a rare strength. The more you reveal, the more you expose yourself to interference, to doubt, even to sabotage. Because the moment people know your direction, they can place obstacles in your path. The Stoic understands this truth instinctively. Power grows in silence. What others don't see, they can't destroy. And the less you explain, the more your results will speak for themselves. Some people will try to discourage you. Others will offer advice you never asked for. And a few, quietly, behind the scenes, may even work against you. That's the reality of ambition. But when you keep your goals private, you eliminate all of that before it ever begins. No one can stop what they don't see coming. Here's the truth. Announcing your next move invites unnecessary resistance. The moment you tell the world what you're planning, opinions rush in. Doubt follows and distractions multiply. But when people don't know your plan, they can't predict your next step. They can't block your progress. They can't manipulate your vision. You become untouchable. A force moving quietly through the noise, guided only by your purpose. Your silence becomes your shield, and your results become the only statement that matters. This is where Stoic wisdom shines brightest. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." The wise don't waste energy convincing others of their direction. They act, they build, they execute. And when success finally comes, they don't need to explain anything, because their results say it all. Let me share a story. A woman I once knew, let's call her Naomi, had a habit of sharing everything. Her goals, her ideas, her dreams, her next projects. She told them all. At first, it felt empowering. She believed that speaking her ambitions out loud made them more real, and people listened. Some cheered, some offered feedback, some gave advice. But as time passed, she began to notice something subtle, yet dangerous. The more she talked, the harder things became. People began questioning her decisions, offering opinions she never asked for, and doubting her ability to make it happen. And third, build resilience. Because life will test you. People will doubt you. Failures will come, and so will critics. But if you keep moving forward, quietly, persistently, your perseverance becomes the ultimate proof of your strength. At the end of the day, what you do matters infinitely more than what you say. Your enemies can argue with your words, but they cannot deny your results. So stop talking, act, move in silence. Let your actions speak so loudly that the world goes quiet just to listen. And if this message resonates with you, if you believe in strength that doesn't shout, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me for more Stoic truths that will make you unstoppable. Because next, we'll uncover a lesson that separates the weak from the wise. Never overreact to insults. When you overreact to an insult, you reveal exactly where your vulnerabilities lie. In that moment of emotional exposure, your enemies see everything they need to know, which buttons to press, which words to use, and how to make you lose your balance. They don't take control from you. You give it to them. But there's a way to break this cycle, a way to reclaim your composure and silence the chaos. It's a single word: indifference. Indifference is the ultimate power move. When someone tries to insult you and you remain calm, when they try to provoke you and you don't even flinch, you take back every ounce of control they were hoping to steal. Your silence becomes a mirror, forcing them to face their own insecurity. They begin to wonder, why isn't he reacting? Why isn't she offended? Why won't they play my game? And in that quiet confusion, you've already won. This is what the Stoics mastered. Epictetus taught that our emotions should never be dictated by the actions of others. He believed that insults only hold power if we give them meaning. It's not what happens to you that matters, it's how you respond to it. If someone hurls an insult your way and you stay unmoved, the insult dies the moment it's spoken. But if you react, defend, explain, retaliate, you breathe life into it. You make it real. You hand over your peace in exchange for their approval. Let me share a story. There was a woman I once knew. Let's call her Celeste. She worked with a colleague who seemed determined to undermine her. Every meeting brought another sarcastic remark. Every conversation came with subtle gossip, backhanded compliments, and quiet attempts to make her look small. At first, Celeste reacted like most people would. She defended herself, explained her intentions, tried to prove her worth. But something strange happened. The more she reacted, the worse the attacks became. Her defense only encouraged more aggression. Then one day, she decided to stop giving her power away. The next time her colleague threw a snide remark her way, she didn't flinch, she didn't argue, she didn't even acknowledge it. She just continued her work, calm, unbothered, as if nothing had been said at all. And something remarkable happened. The insults began to lose their sting. Her colleague's face twisted with confusion, then frustration, because now the game was over, and Celeste refused to play. The power dynamic shifted instantly. Without her emotional reaction to feed on, the insults had nowhere to go. They died the moment they were spoken, and over time, they stopped entirely. Celeste had learned one of life's most powerful lessons. You can't control what others say, but you can control whether or not it touches you. So how do you master this skill of unshakable calm? First, develop self-awareness. When an insult comes your way, pause. Take a deep breath. Recognize that you have complete power over how you respond. The moment you see your reaction forming, you can choose to master it. Second, stay emotionally disciplined. The instant you allow someone to trigger you, you surrender control. They win not because they're right, but because they've manipulated your peace. Guard it like it's sacred. And finally, embrace indifference. Not every insult deserves a reply. In fact, silence is often the most devastating response you can give. Why? Because silence shows that you are above the noise. It tells them you are not worth my energy. At the end of the day, the strongest person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who cannot be provoked. Let them insult. Let them mock. It doesn't matter. Their words only carry the weight you choose to give them. Stay calm. Stay unmoved. And watch how quickly their power evaporates in the presence of your peace. 5. Control what they know about you. Power isn't just about what you do. It's also about what you allow others to know. We live in a world where everyone is watching, analyzing, comparing, trying to figure you out. The more predictable you are, the easier it becomes for others to manipulate you. Your weaknesses, your ambitions, your insecurities. If you reveal them too easily, you give people the very tools they'll use to control you. They'll know what triggers you. They'll know what you want most. And with that knowledge, they can subtly influence your choices, steering you off balance, feeding your ego, or playing on your fears until you dance to their rhythm without even realizing it. That's why a Stoic never reveals his entire hand. Mystery isn't about deception. It's about protection. It's about mastering what the world gets to see and what remains unseen. The key to staying untouchable lies in one simple principle: control what others know about you. The Stoics knew this well. Lao Tzu once said, "Silence is a source of great strength." It's not always what you say that carries power. Sometimes it's what you choose not to say. Silence is not emptiness, it's control. It's the quiet certainty that speaks louder than 1,000 words. Think about it. The person who walks into a room and owns it, without ever saying a word, is the one everyone respects instinctively. That's presence. Let me share a story. A man I once knew, let's call him Marcus, was never the loudest voice in the room. He didn't compete for attention, didn't try to impress, didn't perform for approval, and yet somehow people respected him instantly. His posture was firm but relaxed. Every movement seemed deliberate, controlled. His energy never wavered, calm, centered, grounded. When Marcus joined a conversation, the noise naturally softened. People leaned in, not because he demanded their focus, but because his presence commanded it. He didn't need to raise his voice. His silence carried more authority than words ever could. So how can you cultivate this kind of unshakable presence? Start simple. First, stand tall. Your posture shapes perception. Keep your shoulders back, your head high. Never shrink. Second, move with intention. Every gesture, every glance should carry purpose. Nothing should feel wasted or frantic. And finally, embrace silence. The truly powerful don't announce themselves. They simply exist in their strength. At the end of the day, power isn't always something you speak. It's something you radiate. Walk into a room with quiet confidence. Own your space, and you'll see how the world begins to respect you without you ever needing to say a single word. 3. Let your actions speak. Powerful men do not waste energy proclaiming their greatness. They don't explain, they don't boast, they act. And in a world drowning in noise, that kind of restraint becomes magnetic. Everyone talks. They talk about their ambitions, their future successes, their grand visions, but talk is cheap. The Stoics understood that real strength is measured by execution, not expression. Your discipline, your consistency, your ability to follow through, these are the marks of true power, because words can be forgotten, but results echo. A person who quietly delivers, who fulfills promises without the need for recognition, naturally commands respect. They don't seek validation because their work speaks for them. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's confidence, and their actions become the only language they need. Actions, not words, define character. When you focus on doing, you eliminate the need for explaining. You stop trying to convince others of your worth, because they can already see it. They see it in how you carry yourself, in the calm precision of your movement, in the quiet discipline that follows you wherever you go. They see it in the consistency of your work, the steady rhythm of effort that never seems to waver. And the best part? Your enemies have nothing left to say. Words can be twisted, but actions are undeniable. You can argue against a claim, but you cannot argue against results. The Stoics knew this truth deeply. They believed that virtue, discipline, and resilience were not things to talk about, but things to live. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And that's exactly the difference between ordinary men and powerful ones. The moment you stop describing your strength and start demonstrating it, you become someone others cannot ignore. You become someone your enemies cannot undermine. Let me share a story. There was a man I once knew, let's call him Adrian. Adrian was ambitious. He had dreams, big ones, and he loved to talk about them. He'd tell anyone who'd listen about his future success, his grand plans, his vision for greatness. At first, people believed him. They nodded, they smiled, they even cheered him on. But months passed, and nothing changed. The same words, the same promises, the same talk, without action. And slowly people stopped listening. They smiled politely, nodded out of habit, and dismissed his words as just that, words. Then something shifted. Adrian grew tired of being ignored. He realized that every time he spoke without acting, his words lost power. So one day he stopped talking. Completely. No more announcements, no more promises. He worked quietly, consistently, relentlessly. Every day he showed up. He put in the effort. He tuned out the noise, ignored the doubts, and let his results do the speaking. Weeks turned into months, and slowly people began to notice. Not because he told them to, but because they saw it. They saw the transformation. They saw the change in his energy, the growth in his skills, the fire in his work. His success was no longer a theory. It was visible, measurable, undeniable. And suddenly the same people who once dismissed him now respected him. Because nothing is more powerful than silence, backed by evidence. So how do you let your actions speak for you? First, be consistent. Small efforts done daily build unstoppable momentum. Even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching, keep showing up. Persistence will separate you from the millions who only talk. Second, pursue excellence. Don't settle for good enough. Master your craft. Refine your skills. Strive to become so competent, so focused, that your work speaks volumes before you ever open your mouth.